Alright, we're almost to the finish line. Hang in there. Hard part's behind us, but boy, is this a long review. Consistently, we know it's a parabola. So we also know the y equals ax squared kind. So that's kind of what I'm shooting for. So let's isolate our y. So negative 8, actually I can see we're going to have to complete the square. So I'm going to add 8y, and I'm going to flip it around. So 8y equals x squared plus 2x plus blank plus 17. Now I just did a lot. I realized I didn't want to start bringing this stuff over because I need a 1 in order to complete the square. We've talked about that quite a bit. So I brought that over, then flipped it, and now I'm getting prepared to complete the square. That 17 doesn't do me any good. It's not part of a perfect square, so I bumped it to the curb. Now we go. Take half of that as 1. Squared is 1. Now, the way I'm going to do it is I added 1 here. I could add 1 to this side, but that's just messy. So I'm going to balance it with a negative 1 on the same side. It just works out better with parabolas that way, and I'll prove it to you. We have a perfect square trinomial right here, so it factors into x plus 1 squared, and then that would be 16. Now remember, we want our y alone. We want a fraction here. So we're going to multiply all of this by 1/8. So y equals 1/8 x plus 1 squared plus 2. Now we're ready to rock and jock. Left 1, up 2. Because this is positive, it's a smiley face, and it's semi-wide. They're not asking us to graph it accurately, but yeah, so this is a parabola. You have to write that down on your test. I'm just talking about it. So here you go. Where's the vertex? Negative 1, 2. That's one thing they're asking for. The next thing we need to do is find the foci, and that comes from a equals 1 over 4c. We're going to move c this way, so that's adding something to 2 in our vertex. So we know a is 1/8, so we're going to replace that here. We can see from this that c has to equal 2. It just has to. So 2 up from there would be negative 1, 4. And I think that's it for that. Oh, it says and directrix, which means we'd have to go back to, because it blossoms away from the soil, and so that equation would be y equals 0. Not x equals, because x equals our vertical lines, horizontal or y equals. Okay, next one. X squared, y squared with a plus. That's telling me it's a circle or an ellipse. So let's gather our stuff and see what happens. I'm going to go, because that's a 1, I'm already going to get prepared to complete the square. Same thing with the y squared. Uh-oh, they gave us an odd number, those stinkers. That's not going to help us at all, so I'm bringing it over. And here we go. Take half of that is 3. 3 squared is 9, but then add a 9 over here to keep it balanced. Half of this, now I'm not going to introduce decimals. You can, but I'm not going to. That'd be negative 5 halves. Squared is 25 fourths. That helps me factor my complete perfect square. Trinomial. If I added 25 fourths there, I got to add 25 fourths here. Things are going to get messy. Don't panic. So this is x plus 3 squared plus, remember the cheat code? Whatever that is, just like here, that's what goes in here. Y minus 5 halves squared. Now, common denominators. So this has to be 36 fourths. This has to be negative 12 fourths. So I'm going to add this to this, giving me 24 fourths plus 25. Look how nice and neat that is. 49 fourths. And because there's a 1 here, over 1, that is clearly a circle. So our center is going to be -3, 5/2. And then our radius, which they didn't ask for, but I think they should have, is always the square root of this, because it always equals r squared. So we take the square root of both sides, and we get 7/2, or 3.5. Okay, now we're going to go in reverse. This is way easier. Write the equation of a circle with radius 12. Well, if you know the general rule, you already know you have to square that. And if the center is -3, it's x plus 3. Didn't give myself enough room there. Let's start with a y. That's a 6, so it's going to be y minus 6. And that's plus y, can't think backwards, x plus 3 squared. Done. That's not bad. Write the equation of a circle. Here we go with center 5, -1. So let's start there. X minus 5 squared plus y plus 1 squared. And it goes through the point, -2, 3. They're messing. So let's get this drawing over here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -1, and it goes through the point, -2, 3. Every picture tells a story. So that's just a difficult way of telling you what the radius is. Now, I don't know how you want to do it. You could use the distance formula. I'm just going to use the old Pythagorean theorem with some common sense here. If this is 5, -1, that means if this is -2 and this is 5, that makes this is 7. If this is down 1 and this is up 3, that's a total of 4. So I can go a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That's 16 plus 49, which is 65, equals c squared, which is actually saying r squared, and that's what we want. So you're tempted to take the square root, but don't. Take the 65, and there we go. Now, if you want a better explanation, if we did take the square root of both sides, we'd get r equals the square root of 65, but then you have to square that to put it here. Maybe that made better sense. So write the equation of an ellipse with vertices 5, 2. See if we can squeeze this in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll get the picture drawn. Okay, so based on this information, 5, 2 is right here, -7, 2 is right here, focal point 4, 2 is right here. Now, we need to use these two values to find out what the center is. So if this is 5, 2, and this is -7, 2, that's a total of 12 from here to here. So half of that is 6. So I need to go 6 in from here, which would take me to -1, 2. That's my center, which helps me a lot with this ellipse, because now I'm going to go x plus 1 squared. Also, notice the focal point is on the x-axis, so I know this is going to be a squared, this is going to be plus. This is up 2, so I need to go -2, has to be b squared, and has to equal 1. So my job is to find a squared and b squared. Well, we already talked about it, that this is 6. So half of the major axis is 6. So if I square that, that would tell me that a squared is 36. So a squared is 36, or a is 6. I'll tuck that away. It also tells me the focal point is here, and from the center, -1, 2, to that, which is 4, 2, I'll label that 4, 2. That's a total of 5 units. So C is 5, so C squared is 25. So why is that important? Because we've got to find B. Actually, we've got to find B squared. We're going to use the formula A squared minus B squared equals C squared. Here we go. A squared is 36. C squared is 25. We subtract 36 from both sides, and we get negative b squared equals negative 11, so positive b squared equals 11. You're tempted to take the square root, but we want b squared, and we just found it, so it's 11. Done. Okay, it says state the major axis and the minor axis length. So the major axis is going to be 2a, the minor axis is going to be 2b, so we've got a plan. So if we can find b, double it, find a, double it. Well, let's complete the square, guys. So here we go, x squared plus 4x plus space plus 6y squared minus 60y. We won't do a space yet because we've got to factor that 6 out. We're going to kick this thing over, equals negative 136. Let's start here. Take half of 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. But then I have to add 4 over here. Now this is going to take a little work. So I'm going to show my work here because I'm going to run out of space. Take a 6 out, minus 10y plus space. Take half of 10, that's negative 5. Square it, and I get 25. But that's 25 times 6, which is 150. So I got to add 150 over here also. I'm going to clean this up. X plus 2 squared plus 6 times y minus 5 squared equals 154 minus 136 would be 18. And that has to be a 1. So I got to divide everything by 18. So that would be x plus 2 squared over 18 plus, this reduces to 1/3, y minus 5 squared over 3 equals 1. Well, as you can see, this is your a squared. So that's also our major axis, would be our x-axis. Well, if a squared is 18, I take the square root of it, I'd get a is 3 square root of 2 if I break it down. B squared is the square root of 3, so b would be the square root of 3 if I take the square root. But remember, this is half of the major axis, so we have to double it. So the major axis would be length times 2, 6 square root of 2, times 2 for my minor would be 2 square root of 3. So this is my minor length, and that's my major length, without drawing a picture. But you could draw a picture if you wanted to. I just broke my own rule. Okay, with these crazy numbers, there's no way I'm doing this without a picture. So what I've done, I've said, okay, the hyperbola is vertices 3, 0. It's right here. And 3, negative 18 is going to be a hodgepodge. One is down here. So what I'm going to do is figure out where the center is and work from there. Forgive my drawing, but if that's 0 and that's negative 18, this has to be 3, negative 9. And if these have vertices like this, I'm just kind of showing you, I know that they're Pac-Men going up and Pac-Men going down. So my clue is it's going to be a y squared over a squared minus x squared over b squared equals 1 kind. It just has to be. So here we go. We're going to use this to adjust this and this. And so here's my y value. So I got a y plus 9 squared over a squared minus, adjust this, the x minus 3 squared over b squared equals 1. So the hunt is for a and b, and then we're going to square it. Well, look at the information they gave us. Well, I guess we could start right now and just say we already know something. We know this is 9, so a has to be 9. Because if we were to build our box, we'd go 9, and then, so we know what this is. That'd be 81. So I'm going to replace that with 81. Now here's where they're getting tricky. They're telling us that the foci are here and here. In other words, if we take a look at this point, 3, negative 9, they're adding the square root of 145 to negative 9, and they're subtracting the same thing from negative 9, which would plunk us somewhere in here and somewhere up here. But what they're essentially doing is they're saying C is the square root of 145. How's that helping us? Well, we got to try to find b squared. So we know the formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared applies for hyperbolas. So a squared, we've already decided, is 81. If we square c, the roots fly off. So we get 145. So all we got to do is subtract 81 from both sides. So it's 45 and 19, which is 68. So b squared would be 68. You don't need to take the square root of both sides because you need b squared. That's a little challenging problem right there. Okay, last couple. Every picture tells a story. How you guys try to do this in your head is beyond me, but all right, so the focus, which is our pistol, is right here, 7, -1. Directrix, x equals 5. It has to be a vertical line. That's our soil. So we know our parabola's vertex is right there, and it blossoms away from the soil. That's huge. So what is that point right there? That point right there is 6, -1. It just has to be. Why is that so important? Well, there's a lot going on here. We know this is an x equals ay squared type. We know that a is positive because it's going to be gobbling up points this way towards the positive x. And we know that c is 1. The distance from here to here is 1, or here to here is 1. So a equals 1 over 4c, which is 1 over 4 times 1, which is just 1/4. So we can take this guy out and make it 1/4. Now we need to make the adjustments for where the vertex was moved. It was moved right 6, down 1. So how are we going to do that? We're going to go 1/4. Down 1 is going to be taken care of right here by going plus 1, the opposite. The opposite is inside the parentheses. And then we obey, plus 6. And that moves it right 6. So there'd be your equation. Last one. Let me draw the picture. All right, so here we go. The vertex, 2, -4. Focus, which is what we call the pistol. Why is that important? Because we know our parabola is going to go like this, which is a very similar one, which I'm surprised they didn't have them go the other way, because if it goes the other way, then your A has to be negative. But whatever, that's a little reminder, throw that in for free. This right here is our C value. So -2 is where we went left, 3 is where we went right, so that has to be 5. So A equals 1 over 4C, which is 1/20th, and it's positive. It's also going to be an x equals a y squared kind. Now we make the adjustments for the vertex. So this has to be left 2. So I'm going to do the y adjustment first. Down 4 would be plus 4. And then left 2 is just minus 2. And that, I believe, finishes, thank the Lord, our review. Good luck. Reach out if you have questions. Like and subscribe. Let's get this viral.